Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the shadowy underbelly of Imperial China, where being the Emperor's blade wasn't a path to glory, but a slow descent into a personal nightmare. Imagine waking up every dawn knowing your job is to break bodies and spirits, only to find your own soul cracking under the weight. Did you know that in ancient China, executioners were so despised they couldn't even marry into decent families, treated like walking curses haunted by the ghost they created? What if the real torture wasn't just for the prisoners, but for the ones holding the knife, isolated, feared, and forever stained? And here's a chilling thought. Historians still whisper about how many torturers went mad from the echoes of screams that never left their minds. Could you handle that kind of echo in your own head? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little time machine reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awaken to the damp dawn chill seeping through the thin reed mat beneath you, a cold that clings like regret, wrapping around your bones as if the stones of the Imperial dungeon have claimed you as their own. And in the flickering torchlight that dances weakly from a wall sconce, shadows whisper your name, not in welcome but in warning, pulling you from fitful dreams where faces of the condemned twist into accusations. Your skin prickles with a metallic tang of blood lingering in the air, a taste like iron on your teeth from yesterday's duties, and as you rise, the rough hemp of your tunic scratches against fresh bruises from a scuffle with a defiant prisoner, reminding you that even the enforcers bleed in this forsaken role. You step into the narrow alley outside your hovel, the one tucked away in the lowest quarter of the capital, where the air hangs heavy with the filth of overflowing night soil pots and the distant clang of blacksmiths forging chains you'll soon use, and you wonder, in that ironic twist of fate, if this is worse than scrolling endlessly through a soul-crushing social media feed today, where at least the hate is virtual and not spat directly in your face by neighbours who cross the street to avoid your gaze. The Emperor's blade beckons, not with fanfare, but with a lowly summons scrawled on cheap bamboo slips delivered by a messenger boy who won't meet your eyes, his small frame shivering in the chill as he hands it over, and you feel the weight of your low status pressing down, heavier than any iron shackle, because in Imperial China, torturers like you are outcasts, drawn from the dregs of society, former butchers, gravediggers, or those cursed by family debts, for who else would take a job that stains your lineage for generations, making your children unmarriageable and your ancestors ashamed in the afterlife? You trudge toward the palace gates under a sky still bruised with night, the damp mist curling around your ankles like spectral fingers, and as torchlight flickers ahead, casting elongated shadows that mimic the writhing forms you've seen in the cells. You recall the absurd historical tidbit that executioners often doubled as unofficial healers, their intimate knowledge of anatomy letting them set bones or lance boils for a pittance, a grim side hustle that only deepened the superstitions swirling around you, for folks believed your touch carried death's curse, turning milk sour or crops barren just by proximity. Historians still argue whether this social isolation was deliberate policy to keep torturers loyal only to the throne, or a natural byproduct of a culture obsessed with filial piety and purity. But either way, it leaves you isolated, a ghost among the living, chatting with no one but the rats that scurry in the dungeon's gloom. You pass a vendor hawking steaming buns, his eyes narrowing as he spots the faint bloodstains on your sleeves, stains that never fully wash out, and he turns away, muttering under his breath. A shocking reminder that even the simplest pleasures, like a warm meal, are denied to you, forcing you to eat alone in the shadows, your stomach churning not from hunger, but from the empathy you bury deep, because admitting the sadness of it all would shatter the fragile armour you've built. With a light sarcasm echoing in your mind, you think how this beats modern gig economy woes, like driving for rideshares where passengers rate you low for bad vibes. But here, the rating is etched in fearful glances and whispered curses that follow you like a bad review that never expires. The palace looms now, its towering walls etched with dragons that seem to leer in the flickering light, and you enter through the servants' gate, the guard nodding curtly without a word, his silence a blade sharper than any you wield, and inside, the chill deepens, the stone floors slick with condensation that soaks through your thin sandals, making each step a slippery negotiation with fate. You descend into the underbelly, where the air thickens with the scent of fear, sweat, and rust, the metallic tang intensifying until it coats your tongue like a bitter prophecy. And there, in the dim torchlight that now sputters as if protesting the horrors it illuminates, you meet your overseer, a grizzled veteran named Lao Wei, his face a map of scars from years in this trade, eyes hollowed by the psychological toll that claims so many nightmares that blend the screams of victims with your own suppressed cries. He hands you the day's roster, a scroll listing names and crimes, from petty thieves to suspected rebels, and as you unroll it, your fingers tremble slightly. Not from cold, but from the creeping dread that this roll, meant to uphold Imperial justice, is devouring you from within, a sad element lightly dramatized in the way Lao Wei claps your shoulder, his grip firm but his voice laced with weary sarcasm, murmuring that today's batch includes a scholar who dared criticize the Emperor's taxes, a man whose intellect once commanded respect but now earns only the blade's kiss. You feel the injustice of it, a quiet terror building as you realize how arbitrary the Emperor's whims can be. One wrong word, and you could switch places with the condemned, for torturers have been executed for botching a job or simply falling out of favor. A danger that hangs over you like the damp chill itself. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the vast Imperial machine grinds on, a colossal beast fed by blood and obedience, where individuals like you are mere cogs, rusting in the perpetual shadow. But push that thought aside, for dwelling on it invites madness, and instead, you prepare your tools in the flickering light, the knives glinting with a cold promise, their edges honed to precision yet dulled by the moral corrosion eating at your core. As you sharpen one, the scrape of whetstone against steel echoes like a dirge, and you catch your reflection in the blade, distorted and fragmented, a shocking visual of how this life has warped you, turning a once ordinary soul into something feared and fractured. The first prisoner is dragged in, chains clinking against the stone, his eyes wide with terror that mirrors your hidden own, and you steel yourself, the metallic tang now mingled with the acrid smoke from the torch, a sensory struggle that chokes your breath as you begin the interrogation, questions flowing mechanically while your mind races with empathy you dare not show, for showing weakness here is as fatal as rebellion. In this moment, the irony strikes like a modern punchline. Imagine being the HR enforcer in a toxic corporation, firing people left and right, only to know you're next on the chopping block, but amplified 1,000-fold with real blades and real blood. Historians debate if torturers like you are truly villains or victims of the system, coerced by poverty and threats into this hellish existence. But as the prisoner pleads, his voice cracking, you feel the sad weight of it all, a psychological chill settling deeper than the dawn's dampness. You proceed, the torchlight flickering wildly now, casting grotesque shadows that dance like mocking spirits on the walls. And as the session drags on, the chill seeps into your very marrow, a harbinger of the isolation to come. But wait, a faint whisper from the corridor beyond another summons, perhaps. Or is it the wind carrying echoes of unrest? The uncertainty lingers, a mood shift that tightens your chest as the day's true horrors unfold in the dim, unyielding light. You pause for a breath, the air heavy and still, wondering if today's blade will cut too close to your own fraying edges. The metallic tang now a constant companion, biting sharper with each passing second. The prisoner slumps, defeated, and you wipe sweat from your brow, the damp chill mocking your efforts to stay warm in this cold world of duty and despair. Lao Wei watches from the corner, his presence a reminder that even mentors here are suspects, their loyalty tested by the same fickle throne. You think of the absurd practice where executioners sometimes wore masks woven from horsehair to hide their identities, a futile bid against the superstitions that branded you as harbingers of doom, dooming your family to perpetual shunning. And in that reflection, the modern parallel hits like being a whistleblower in a whistleblower-unfriendly era, where speaking truth gets you exiled from society's graces. The session ends with a confession extracted, not through skill, but sheer exhaustion. A sad testament to the system's efficiency in breaking wills, yours included. As you clean the tools, the flickering torchlight dims slightly, as if weary of witnessing more, and you step back into the corridor, the damp walls pressing in like judgmental ancestors. The chill follows you upward, a persistent ghost. And as you emerge into the courtyard, the first rays of sun do little to warm the ice in your veins, but the blade beckons again, another name on the list, pulling you deeper into the role that sucks the life from you one cut at a time. You glance at the palace spires, majestic yet indifferent, zooming out to see the empire as a vast web of power, where threads like you dangle precariously, ready to snap. The irony curls your lip in a sardonic smile, better than a dead-end job flipping burgers. Right, where at least the grease washes off. Yet here, the stains are eternal. A fellow torturer nods in passing, his eyes as hollow as yours, a silent camaraderie born of shared misery, and you wonder if he too dreams of escape, only to wake to the same damp dawn. The metallic tang fades slightly in the open air, but the taste lingers on your tongue, a reminder that no amount of rinsing erases the bitterness. As midday approaches, the chill eases, but the psychological weight intensifies. Each step toward the next cell a descent into your own private abyss. You hear distant chants from the marketplace, lives untouched by your shadow, and envy stabs sharper than any knife. The torchlight motif mutates here, no longer flickering in dungeons, but echoed in the sun's glare off polished guards' helmets, blinding and accusatory. And in this light, the debate rages in your mind with torturers, monsters, or mere men trapped in a monstrous machine. The answer eludes, like smoke from a dying flame. You press on, the Emperor's invisible blade at your back, whispering that today might be the one where the role consumes you whole. The courtyard empties, leaving you alone with the wind's sigh. A strange visual of solitary figures etched against ancient walls, their shadows long and lonely. Or is that chill not from the dawn anymore, but from the realization that the whispers are growing louder, closer, beckoning you toward an uncertain fate? Did you know that in Imperial China, executioners like you were so reviled that their families were barred from civil service exams for 3 generations, turning a single career choice into a hereditary curse that doomed your bloodline to eternal obscurity? Your palms slick with sweat grip the cold iron chains, the metal biting into your skin like a lover's betrayal, clinking softly at first, but then louder as you drag them across the stone floor, each link echoing in the dim corridor where the damp chill from dawn has evolved into a clammy humidity that makes your tunic stick uncomfortably, beads of perspiration trickling down your spine like accusations you can't shake off. The echoes of screams from deeper in the dungeon test your resolve, faint at first but swelling into a chorus that vibrates through the walls. Not just sounds, but phantom vibrations that crawl under your flesh, making your ears ring with the raw desperation of men and women who've glimpsed their end. And you pause for a moment, chains heavy in your hands, wondering if this is worse than enduring a never-ending conference call in a modern office, where at least the voices demanding your soul are muffled by headsets and not laced with the gurgle of impending doom. You haul the prisoner forward, a wiry merchant accused of smuggling silk to evade taxes, his eyes darting wildly in the sputtering torchlight that now casts jagged shadows like accusing fingers pointing at you both. The flames flicker, mutating into erratic dances that illuminate the grime-caked walls, where moisture beads and drips in rhythmic torment, each drop a sensory struggle that amplifies the clink of chains into a symphony of dread. As you secure him to the wooden frame, the iron links grinding against the rusted bolts with a screech that sets your teeth on edge, tasting that familiar metallic tang anew, sharper now from the rust flaking into your mouth as you bite back a grimace. You recall how executioners in the Ming dynasty often inherited their roles like a poisoned heirloom, families trapped in this lowly caste because no one else would touch the job, their homes segregated in filthy outskirts where even stray dogs kept distance. A factual slice of history folded into your daily grind that makes you chuckle inwardly with light sarcasm. Imagine being ghosted on every dating app because your profile screams professional soul breaker, but here, it's not an algorithm. It's ancient superstition branding you untouchable. The merchant pleads in hushed tones, his breath hot and sour against your face, a shocking element in how his words humanize him, reminding you he's a father with children waiting at home, their futures now tainted by association, and you feel a sad pang lightly dramatized in the way your hands tremble slightly while tightening the chains. Not from fear, but from the creeping empathy that could unravel everything if you let it surface. With clever commentary whispering in your mind, you think how ironic it is that you, the enforcer of imperial justice, live in perpetual injustice yourself, shunned at markets where vendors hike prices for your cursed coin, or barred from temples where priests fear your presence might offend the ancestors worse than being cancelled on social media today, where at least you can start a new account. But here, the stain is indelible, passed down like a bad gene. You begin the preliminary questioning, the chains clinking rhythmically as he shifts, testing the bonds, and the echoes of past screams swell again, not from this cell, but from memory, where a surprising twist revisits Lao Wei, your overseer from the morning, who once confided over weak tea that he started this life after his own father was executed for treason, forcing him into the role to clear the family debt, a cycle that now threatens to ensnare your own kin if you falter. Historians still debate whether torturers like you were coerced victims of the system or opportunistic sadists drawn to the power. But as the merchant winces under the first twist of a finger, press an absurd historical tidbit, being that inquisitors sometimes used bamboo slivers under nails, mimicking the plant's relentless growth to extract confessions without leaving visible marks. You feel the resolve cracking, the sweaty palms making the tools slip, a physical event that forces you to wipe them on your tunic, only to smear more grime and heighten the clammy discomfort. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the vast labyrinth of the palace dungeon stretches like veins in a colossal beast, pulsing with the Empire's hidden cruelties, where each clink of chain is a heartbeat echoing through stone arteries, connecting your isolated existence to the throne's distant pulse. But push onward, for dwelling invites the madness that claimed so many before you, like the tales of executioners who retired only to be haunted by illusions, seeing chains in every shadow, and you adjust the frame, the iron warming slightly from your touch but still cold at its core, much like the empathy you suppress. The merchant spills details of his accomplices, his voice breaking amid the echoes that now seem to mock your own internal turmoil, a psychological chill settling as you realize each confession you wring out adds another layer to your isolation, friends scarce and family distant, fearing the taint. In a moment of light sarcasm, you muse that, at least in today's world, therapists exist for burnout, but here, the only counsel is the bottle of cheap sorghum wine waiting in your hovel, its burn a poor substitute for human warmth. The session drags, the torchlight steadying into a sullen glow that highlights the sweat glistening on both your skins, the metallic tang evolving into a coppery aftertaste from the tension in your jaw, and as he slumps, defeated, you unchain him with clinks that reverberate like final judgments, your palms raw and stinging from the friction, a sensory struggle that mirrors the rawness in your soul. But the day presses on. More prisoners are waiting, and you step into the adjoining cell, chains coiled over your shoulder like a serpent companion. Their weight, a constant reminder of the burden you bear. Lao Wei appears briefly at the doorway, his scar-twisted face a surprising twist as he reveals he's been watching, approving your technique but warning of the Emperor's spies who monitor even torturers for signs of weakness, adding paranoia to your growing dread. You nod, the echoes fading slightly as you prepare the next setup, the damp air thickening with anticipation, and in this cycle, the resolve holds by a thread, tested not by the screams but by the silence that follows, heavy and accusing, zooming out once more. The Empire's justice machine churns indifferently, a grand tapestry woven with threads of suffering, where your role is but a dark knot, binding you tighter with each pull. The merchant is led away, his shuffling steps clinking faintly, leaving you alone with the tools, their iron gleam a strange visual of polished cruelty amid the filth, reflecting fragments of your weary face back at you. Or perhaps the real test comes now, in the quiet between sessions, where the echoes linger longest, whispering doubts that chill deeper than any dungeon draft, shifting your mood toward the unrest brewing in the cells beyond. The chains rest heavy in your lap as you sit for a brief respite, sweaty palms cooling against the metal, but the clinks resume in your mind, a relentless rhythm that promises no peace, only the next trial of will. You rise again, the torchlight flaring as if sensing your movement, casting elongated shadows that twist like forgotten souls, and the metallic tang sharpens on your tongue, a harbinger of the struggles yet to unfold. In the distance, a new scream pierces the air, not an echo but fresh, pulling you forward into the fray. Your resolve armoured but fraying at the edges, like chains worn thin from overuse. The absurdity hits you. Historical records note that some executioners kept tally marks on their arms with tattoos, a grim ledger of lives altered, mirroring the 5 punishments they inflicted from branding to worse. A tidbit that makes you glance at your own unmarked skin, wondering when your turn comes. Historians argue if such marks were badges of honour or self-inflicted penance, but for you, the debate is moot, the reality a daily grind far grimmer. Compared to modern whistleblowers facing online backlash, your isolation feels archaic, yet profoundly lonelier. No screens to hide behind, just the raw stare of society. The next prisoner awaits, a woman accused of adultery, her eyes defiant as you approach with the chains, the clink now a dirge that tests every fibre of your being, the sweaty palms slipping once more, forcing a tighter grip that bruises your own flesh. Sadness creeps in, lightly dramatized by her quiet sob, humanizing the abstract justice you serve, and you secure her gently, almost apologetically. The irony not lost on you, the breaker of bodies showing mercy in micro-moments, a sarcasm that curls your lip as you think, better than being a corporate layoff specialist, firing via email without seeing the tears. The questioning begins, echoes building anew, the torchlight steady but the damp chill returning in waves, mutating into a feverish heat from exertion, your sensory world a whirlwind of discomfort. As she resists, the chains rattle with her struggles, amplifying the test of resolve. Each clink a question, how much longer can you endure this dance of duty and despair? The session intensifies, her confessions trickling out like the sweat down your back, and you feel the psychological chill deepen, a foreshadowing of cracks to come. But onward, the iron unyielding in your grasp, the strange visual of linked shadows on the wall merging yours with hers, inseparable in this moment of shared fate. Did you know that during the Tang dynasty, torturers like you were sometimes forced to demonstrate their methods on dummies made from straw and animal hides? But occasionally, a slip-up meant practicing on a fellow lowborn, turning colleagues into unwilling test subjects in a macabre rehearsal for real agony. The flickering torchlight reveals faces twisted in agony as you lean closer to the woman chained before you, her features contorted in a mask of pain and defiance that mirrors the grotesque carvings on the dungeon walls, the flame's unsteady glow casting orange hues across her sweat-slicked skin, making shadows pool in the hollows of her eyes like inky accusations, and you feel the heat from the torch singe the hairs on your arm, a sensory struggle that battles the persistent damp chill seeping up from the floor, now mutating into a sticky warmth where sweat mingles with the grime underfoot, turning each shift of your weight into a slippery negotiation with balance. You press on with the interrogation, your voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of doubt as her story unfolds adultery with a court scribe, a forbidden liaison born of loneliness in a marriage arranged by indifferent elders, and as she whispers names, the torchlight flares suddenly from a draught, illuminating the raw fear in her gaze, forcing you to question the justice you enforce, because what equity is there in punishing passion when the emperor himself keeps concubines numbering in the hundreds? A factual moment woven into the empire's fabric where double standards shielded the elite while crushing the common. In a light sarcasm that bubbles up unbidden, you think how this beats modern celebrity scandals, where affairs splash across tabloids with no real consequences beyond a PR spin. But here, the fallout is etched in flesh and fate. No forgiveness tours or ghostwriters to soften the blow. The physical event escalates as she thrashes against the chains, her movements yanking at the iron link still warm from your grip, sending a jolt up your arms that aches in your shoulders, a reminder that even the enforcer feels the recoil of violence, and you steady her with a firm hand, the contact shocking in its humanity skin on skin, pulse racing under your palm like a trapped bird, lightly dramatizing the sad element of shared vulnerability in this pit of despair. Historians still debate whether such gendered punishments stemmed from Confucian ideals of hierarchy or were pragmatic tools to maintain patriarchal control. But as you listen to her plea for mercy on behalf of her children, who'll bear the stigma like you do, the doubt creeps deeper, a psychological chill that rivals the dampness clinging to your tunic, now heavy and sodden as if weeping for the injustices unfolding. You revisit Lao Wei with a surprising twist, spotting him lurking in the shadowed alcove, not just observing but scribbling notes on a bamboo slip. His earlier mentorship revealed a surveillance for the throne's spies, turning your tentative alliance into another layer of paranoia that tightens like the chains themselves. The absurd historical tidbit surfaces in your mind. Executioners sometimes use scorpion venom diluted in water to loosen tongues without visible harm. A natural interrogator sourced from desert borders, applied via soaked cloths that made victims hallucinate confessions. A clever yet cruel innovation that spared the blade for later spectacles. With clever commentary, you muse inwardly that it's like those truth serums in spy movies, but without the Hollywood glamour, just the gritty reality of bugs harvested under moonlight by desperate underlings like yourself. The torchlight mutates further, its flicker sinking with her ragged breaths, casting erratic patterns on the ceiling like frantic spirits fleeing judgment, and you feel the metallic tang return to your tongue, sharper now from biting back words of sympathy, a sensory motif evolving into a coppery bite that grates with every swallow. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the dungeon expands in your perception, a subterranean river of suffering flowing beneath the glittering palace above, where silk-robed nobles dine oblivious to the currents of pain sustaining their world. Each twist of fate a ripple echoing through stone and soul. But you press forward, extracting the last details with a twist of the frame that elicits a gasp, her face twisting anew in the light, forcing the question of justice to loom larger. Is this enforcement, or mere theatre for the Emperor's ego? A show where you're both actor and unwilling prop. The irony strikes like a modern aside, worse than being a reality TV producer manipulating lives for ratings. At least there the drama ends with the season, but here it lingers in bloodlines and bad dreams. She collapses into sobs, the chains slackening as her resistance breaks, and you signal for a guard to note the confession, your hands trembling slightly from the exertion, the damp chill reclaiming your skin as the torch dims in response to the waning tension. Yet doubt festers, a seed planted by her story that questions the very pillars of the justice you uphold, making each subsequent prisoner a mirror to your own entrapment. You move to the next cell, the flickering light guiding your steps through the corridor's murk, where echoes of her cries blend with older ones, testing not just resolve, but the fragile line between duty and decency. Lao Wei steps out fully now, his twist deepening as he hands you a vial of that scorpion extract, murmuring it's for the rebel leader waiting ahead, his eyes betraying a flicker of his own buried doubts, a shared glance that humanizes him beyond the scars. The metallic tang intensifies as you uncork it, the acrid scent wafting up like forbidden knowledge, and you apply it carefully, watching the prisoner's eyes glaze over in hallucinatory terror, his twisted face revealing visions of ancestral ghosts judging his betrayal and yours. Historians argue if such methods were effective deterrents or merely prolonged suffering for spectacle, but in the moment, it feels like both, a sad dramatization of Empire's cruelty where even the tools whisper of excess. Compared to today's polygraph test that can be beaten with practice, this venomous truth feels archaic and absolute. No room for lies when delirium takes hold. The torchlight steadies, illuminating the rebels' contortions, shadows writhing like living doubts on the walls, and you question anew, the justice fracturing in your mind like brittle iron. Zooming out again, the Empire's vast machinery hums with such interrogations, a constellation of hidden chambers where light and shadow wage eternal war, each flicker a testament to the human cost buried beneath grandeur. Sarcasm curls your thoughts, great gig, enforcing laws you secretly resent, like a vegan working in a slaughterhouse, the hypocrisy gnawing deeper than any chain bite. The rebel spills secrets of underground plots, names tumbling out amid fevered rants, and you record them with a quill that scratches like accusations on parchment, the physical act grounding you amid the chaos. But the woman's face lingers in memory, her agony a catalyst for your growing unrest, making this session feel heavier, the damp chill now a feverish sweat that blurs your vision. As he quiets, the vial empty, you wipe your brow, the sensory struggle peaking in the clammy grip of exhaustion, metallic aftertaste lingering like regret. Yet onward, the light beckons to another face, another twist, forcing the justice question to echo louder in the silence between confessions. The guard hauls the rebel away, his limp form casting an elongated shadow that merges with yours on the floor. A strange visual of intertwined destinies in the flickering glow. Or is that chill not from doubt alone, but from the whisper of rebellion stirring within, shifting your mood toward the faces yet to confront the torch sputters, as if weary of revelations, and you step deeper into the maze, the twisted expressions etched in your mind like permanent scars, questioning everything as the damp envelops you once more. In the next alcove, a cluster of prisoners huddle, their faces emerging in the light like ghosts from fog, each one a new test of the justice you wield but no longer fully believe. Lao Wei vanishes into the shadows, his twist leaving a void, and you face them alone, the metallic tang a constant companion, biting with irony as you realize the true prisoner might be you, chained to this role by circumstance and fear. The debate rages internally with torturers, architects of order or unwitting pawns in chaos, but the faces demand action. Their agony a mirror to your soul's quiet scream. Modern parallel hits hard, like whistleblowers silenced by NDAs, but here, silence is survival, no lawsuits to fight back. The group includes a scholar, his refined features twisting as you approach, and you begin, the torchlight revealing the injustice in stark relief, forcing the question to crystallize how long until you break under the weight of what you enforce. Sadness lightly dramatizes his plea for intellectual freedom, a shocking reminder that ideas are tortured here as much as bodies. The absurd tidbit emerges some executioners collected teeth from victims as talismans against evil spirits, believing it warded off the ghosts they created, a morbid collection hidden in pouches like grim souvenirs. With commentary, you think it's like hoarding bad karma points, redeemable for nothing but nightmares. The session unfolds, faces twisting in unison, the flickering light a relentless witness, and doubt swells, a psychological undercurrent pulling you toward unknown depths. But the Empire demands, and you comply, the damp chill mutating into an oppressive heat from clustered bodies, sensory overload that blurs the line between enforcer and enforced. Zooming out, the dungeon breathes as one entity, a labyrinthine lung inhaling suffering and exhaling order, where your role is but a fleeting breath in its ancient rhythm. The scholar confesses to seditious writings, his words flowing like blood from a hidden wound, and you note them, hand cramping from the quill's bite, physical pain echoing the mental. As the group disperses to cells, their twisted faces fading into shadow, you linger, the torchlight dimming to embers, leaving a strange visual of solitary flame against endless dark. Did you know that in ancient China, bamboo torture was whispered to harness the plant's ferocious growth up to a foot in a single day, turning nature itself into a silent executioner? But historians still argue whether it was a genuine imperial method or a tall tale spun by Western observers to demonize the East. Bamboo shoots pierce slowly under your watch as you secure the ropes around the prisoner's limbs, the coarse fibers biting into your palms with a prickly insistence that echoes the sharp tips below. The humid air of the outdoor enclosure thick with the earthy scent of fresh soil and sprouting greenery. A sensory struggle where the damp chill from the dungeons mutates into a sweltering stickiness that plasters your tunic to your back. Beads of sweat stinging your eyes like unspoken regrets as you position the condemned over the bed of the young bamboo, their tender points honed to needle-like sharpness by your own blade earlier that morning. The physical event unfolds with deliberate slowness as you tie the final knot, the prisoner's body suspended just inches above the chutes, his breath ragged and pleading, and you step back, the ground soft and yielding under your sandals, mud squelching up between your toes in a filthy embrace that mirrors the inescapable mire of your role, forcing you to confront how this passive cruelty letting nature do the dirty work feels even more insidious than wielding a knife yourself. A shocking element lightly dramatized in the way his initial whimpers evolve into resigned silence, knowing the agony will build over days, not hours. With light sarcasm curling in your thoughts, you muse that it's like setting a slow cooker trap in a world without appliances, worse than waiting for a delayed Amazon delivery that never arrives. But here, the package is pain delivered incrementally by the Earth's own rhythm. The torchlight, carried out here in a portable brazier, flickers weakly against the encroaching dusk, its glow mutating into elongated shadows that twist across the bamboo grove like accusatory vines. illuminating the metallic tang that now clings to your tongue from the iron tools scattered nearby, a motif evolving into a gritty residue from the soil-dusted chains you handled, grating with every swallow, as if the land itself protests your complicity. You revisit the merchant from earlier sessions with a surprising twist, learning from a guard's mutter that he's the one strapped here now. His smuggling crimes escalated to treason by some palace intrigue, turning your prior interrogation into a prelude for this drawn-out horror, his familiar face paling in recognition as he spots you, whispering accusations that burrow deeper than any shoot. Historians debate if bamboo torture was ever systematically used in Imperial China, or if records exaggerate it for propaganda, perhaps borrowed from Southeast Asian folklore. But in this moment, the debate feels irrelevant as the first subtle creak signals growth, the shoots inching upward with relentless vitality, piercing the air with a faint rustle that amplifies your growing dread, a psychological undercurrent swelling like the humidity itself. The absurd historical tidbit surfaces in your mind. Executioners sometimes fashion temporary shelters from bamboo mats during long vigils, turning the instrument of death into a makeshift home. A grim irony where the plant that kills also shields you from rain, like living in a house built from your own nightmares. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the grove transforms into a living labyrinth under the fading sky, where each stalk whispers of time's inexorable march, connecting your isolated watch to the Empire's vast cycle of growth and decay. Empires rising and falling like these shoots in eternal renewal. But you shake off the reverie, pacing the perimeter as the prisoner shifts uncomfortably, the ropes creaking in harmony with the bamboo's advance, and you feel the sensory struggle intensify, the humidity wrapping around you like a shroud, making breaths laboured and skin slick, while the flickering torchlight dances on the shoots, highlighting their slow ascent as if mocking your impatience for an end that comes too gradually. In a clever commentary, you think how this method spares your hands the direct stain but dirties your soul with anticipation. Ironic, like modern passive-aggressive emails that fester unresolved, but amplified here with real stakes. No delete button to erase the unfolding torment. The merchant's eyes lock on yours, a sad plea flickering in the light, humanizing the threat and chipping at your armor, and you avert your gaze, the dread building as night falls, the chill returning in waves despite the day's warmth lingering in the soil, mutating the damp into a clammy fog that chills your bones while sweat cools on your skin. Lao Wei appears at the edge of the grove, his twist deepening as he reveals he's assigned you this vigil alone, a test of loyalty from higher up, his scarred face impassive but his voice laced with weary empathy, handing you a flask of weak wine to dull the hours, a small mercy in this vigil of growth. The metallic tang sharpens from the flask's rim, biting like judgment, and you sip sparingly, watching the shoots press against the prisoner's flesh, the first prick drawing a gasp that echoes through the grove, testing your dread further as empathy wars with duty. Compared to today's surveillance jobs, like monitoring security cams all night, this feels archaic, the boredom laced with horror, no fast-forward through the slow pierce. The bamboo advances, inch by agonizing inch, the rustle a constant whisper, and you circle again, the mud now caking your legs in a sensory armor of filth, struggling against the urge to intervene, the growing dread a weight heavier than any chain. Zooming out once more, the Empire's punishments bloom like forbidden flowers in this hidden corner, petals of cruelty unfurling under starlit indifference, where your role wilts in the shadow of moral decay. Sarcasm surfaces lightly, great perk of the job, front row seats to nature's horror show, better than a Netflix binge that leaves you sleepless anyway. The merchant moans softly as a shoot breaks skin, the sound piercing your resolve, a shocking reminder of life's fragility, and you clench your fists, the rope's fibers still embedded in your palms like thorns, amplifying the physical toll. Historians argue over the efficacy of such slow methods, wondering if they deterred crime or merely satisfied sadistic curiosities at court. But as dread mounts with each creak, you ponder your own deterrence, the fear of becoming the watched keeping you in line. The torchlight sputters, casting grotesque patterns on the bamboo, shadows elongating like grasping hands, and you add fuel, the flame roaring back to life, illuminating the prisoner's contorted form, his twist of fate now literal in the piercing advance. The humidity thickens with night, a blanket of unease, and the metallic aftertaste lingers, evolving into a bitter residue from the wine, grating on your nerves. You sit on a bamboo stump, the irony not lost as it supports you while condemning him. An hours blur, the growth mirroring your dread's expansion, slow but unstoppable. A guard relieves you briefly for a meal of cold rice, its texture mushy and unappetizing, a sensory low that matches the gloom, and upon return, the shoots have progressed, the merchant's whispers turning to pleas, deepening the sad dramatization of his suffering under your watch. Modern aside hits like doom-scrolling bad news, unable to look away. But here, you're the curator of the feed. Lao Wei's flask empty. You face the vigil solo, the flickering light your only companion, mutating into a beacon that attracts moths fluttering madly. Their wings a frantic counterpoint to the bamboo's steady rise. The dread peaks as dawn hints on the horizon, the shoots now embedded, the prisoner's vitality waning, forcing you to question if this slow pierce erodes your humanity more than swift ends. The absurd tidbit resurfaces. Some records claim bamboo was fed with blood to accelerate growth, a macabre fertilizer turning victims into unwilling nurturers, a cycle of horror that chills deeper. As light creeps in, the grove awakens with bird calls dissonant against the moans, and you stand, muscles aching from the night's stance, the damp chill reclaiming the air in morning mist. The merchant's eyes glaze, a psychological chill settling as you realize each vigil like this carves away at your soul, leaving scars invisible but profound. But the Empire demands endurance, and you signal for water to prolong the process, the bamboo unrelenting, mirroring dread that grows unchecked. The torch extinguishes in the dawn, smoke curling like departing spirits, leaving a strange visual of sun-dappled shoots glistening with dew and despair. Or is that chill from the realization that your watch extends? The growth a metaphor for the Empire's creeping corruption, shifting your mood toward the inevitable unraveling ahead? Did you know that during the Qing dynasty, whispers of rebellion in the dungeons could lead to mass executions, where torturers like you were ordered to eliminate entire cells overnight? But some survivors claimed the real uprising started not with prisoners, but with disillusioned guards turning against their own. Whispers of rebellion swirl in the filthy dungeons as you navigate the labyrinthine corridors. The air thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and rotting straw that clings to your nostrils like a persistent fog, making each inhale a laboured battle against nausea. The damp chill now mutating into a fetid warmth from overcrowded cells where heat from desperate huddles battles the perpetual moisture seeping from cracked stone walls, turning the floor into a slick slurry of mud and waste that squelches under your sandals, forcing you to grip the walls for balance, your fingers coming away coated in grime that feels alive, crawling with unseen vermin. The physical event ignites as a sudden commotion erupts from a nearby cell, prisoners murmuring in hushed tones that rise like smoke, and you rush forward, torch in hand, its flickering light now sputtering with oily smoke that stings your eyes, casting erratic shadows that twist the bars into snarling beasts, illuminating clusters of gaunt faces pressed against the iron, their eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and defiance, as rumours of an Imperial tax revolt outside the palace walls filter in through bribed guards, turning every inmate into a potential spark for chaos that could engulf you all. You shove the torch closer, the metallic tang evolving into an acrid bite from the smoke-mingled rust on the bars, grating on your teeth as you bark orders for silence. But the whispers persist, weaving tales of peasant uprisings led by secret societies like the White Lotus, a factual thread in China's turbulent history where such groups blended mysticism with resistance, challenging the throne's mandate and making your role not just enforcer, but unwitting guardian against the Empire's unraveling. In a light sarcasm that flickers through your mind like the torch itself, you think how this beats monitoring office gossip in a corporate cubicle, where whispers might get you HR meeting but not a beheading. Yet here, the stakes are lethally real. No water cooler to diffuse the tension. The sensory struggle peaks as you enter the cell, the filth underfoot sucking at your feet like quicksand. A shocking element in how one prisoner's cough sprays flecks of spittle that land warm on your cheek, lightly dramatizing the sad vulnerability of bodies packed like sardines. Diseases spreading unchecked in this breeding ground of despair, reminding you that rebellion isn't always blades, but sometimes the slow rot of neglect. Historians still debate whether these dungeon whispers were genuine seeds of revolt or exaggerated by paranoid officials to justify purges. But as you separate the ringleader, a former farmer with calloused hands that grasp at your tunic, you feel the potential threat pulse like a living thing, his words of injustice echoing your own buried doubts, turning the interrogation into a mirror of your soul's unrest. The absurd historical tidbit crosses your mind amid the chaos torturers sometimes use trained ravens to carry messages from cells to overseers. Birds perched on dungeon ledges cawing alerts, a feathered spy network that added an eerie layer to the filth, like nature conspiring with the throne's paranoia. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the dungeons pulse like the underbelly of a slumbering dragon, whispers coiling through its veins like smoke signals of awakening fury, connecting your isolated vigilance to the broader tapestry of dynastic cycles where empires crumble from within, one murmur at a time. But you shake it off, hauling the farmer to a solitary rack, the whispers following like ghosts, and you apply pressure with a twist of the mechanism, his grunts amplifying the swirl of unrest. Every prisoner now a suspect in your eyes, their collective gaze boring into you from the shadows, heightening the dread that one wrong move could flip the roles, you becoming the chained. With clever commentary, you muse that it's ironic how the empires might rely on lowlifes like you to snuff out threats, yet you're the most disposable, like an antivirus program that's first to be corrupted in a hacker's game. The torchlight mutates further, its flames steadying into a sullen red glow that paints the filth in bloody hues, the metallic tang sharpening from the rack's creaking gears, biting like accusation with each turn. You revisit the woman from the adultery case with a surprising twist, overhearing from a guard that her confessed lover was part of this rebel whisper network. His execution botched earlier leading to these murmurs, turning your prior mercy into a potential liability that could drag you down if uncovered, her face flashing in memory as a symbol of how personal ties weave into political webs. The farmer cracks, naming accomplices outside, but his eyes hold a spark of triumph, a sad dramatization of resistance's cost, humanizing the threat and chipping at your armor. Modern comparison strikes worse than moderating toxic online forums where trolls lurk. At least there you can ban without hearing the pleas, but here, the whispers demand confrontation, no mute button for the soul. The cell quiets temporarily, but the filth remains, caking your skin in a sensory armor of revulsion, struggling against the urge to retch as you exit, the damp warmth clinging like shame. Lao Wei materializes from the gloom, his twist revealing he's intercepted a whisper, meant for you a bribe offer from rebels to turn coat. His scarred hand crumpling the note, eyes probing for your loyalty in the flickering light, adding paranoia to the swirling threats. The debate lingers, were such offers common, or folklore to test torturer's mettle? Either way, it turns every shadow into an enemy. The prisoner's potential now a noose around your neck. Sarcasm bubbles up fantastic. Now you're the star of your own conspiracy thriller, without the popcorn or plot armor. The whispers resume faintly as you move on, the torch casting long shadows that dance with the filth-stirred dust, a visual of unrest manifesting in particulate chaos. You report to higher guards, the metallic tang fading but replaced by the bitter taste of bile from suppressed fear, the sensory world a miasma of threat and grime. Zooming out again, the palace above slumbers in silk luxury, oblivious to the dungeon's brewing storm, where whispers are the wind heralding typhoons that topple thrones. Your role a fragile dike against the flood. The farmer's chains rattle as he's dragged away, his parting glance a psychological chill that questions your allegiance, shifting mood toward the Emperor's shifting sands. Guards swarm now, quelling the cells with batons, the thuds echoing like thunder in the filth, and you join, your strikes mechanical but heavy with doubt, the damp warmth now a feverish sweat that blurs vision. One prisoner grabs your arm, whispering of freedom if you aid them, the touch electric in its desperation, a shocking reminder of shared humanity amid the swirl. The absurd tidbit some dungeons had hidden passages for spies, walled ears listening to every murmur, turning stone into sentient watchers. Compared to today's wiretaps, it's low-tech but intimately invasive. No warrants needed. Lao Wei pulls you aside post-quell, his twist deepening with praise laced in warning past the test, or become the threat. The filth clings as you scrub futilely at a basin, sensory struggle peaking in the futile cleanse, grime embedded like guilt. Whispers die down, but the potential lingers. Every prisoner a tinderbox under your watch, dread swirling thicker than the air itself. The torch gutters low, shadows swallowing the bars in a strange visual of imprisoned light, flickering defiance against the dark. Or is that chill from knowing the rebellion seed might root in your own heart? Mood tilting toward the Emperor's capricious gaze. The dungeons settle into uneasy quiet, the filth settling too, but threats bubble beneath, ready to erupt anew. You patrol once more, torch renewed, its light probing cells where eyes avert but whispers plot in silence, the metallic tang returning from licked lips nervous with tension. Historians argue if these moments sparked real uprisings or fizzled in myth, but the swirl feels palpable, turning routine into razor-wire tension, modern aside like herding cats in a viral meme storm, unpredictable and clawing. The woman's lover's name echoes in a new confession, twisting the narrative further, her case now entangled in rebellion's web, your mercy a potential noose. Sadness lightly dramatizes a child's cry from a family cell, innocent caught in the threat's net. Clever commentary, Empire's justice, blind but biased, seeing threats in shadows while ignoring the light of reform. The night deepens, filth stench a constant companion, sensory overload mutating into numb acceptance, but dread sharpens. Zooming out, the Empire's foundations crack with each whisper, a mosaic of power fracturing underfoot like the dungeon floor. Guards whisper too now, their potential threat mirroring prisoners, paranoia peaking. The chill deepens, psychological undercurrent of isolation amplified, ranks now a minefield of knives unseen. You navigate the paths, wound throbbing in rhythm with steps, sensory struggle a pulsing reminder of vulnerability. The palace walls loom, shadows within hinting at more traitors lurking. The bite's venom coursing through ranks like unseen rivers. Lao Wei's motives echo, sad in their desperation. Shocking how necessity births monsters from men. Sarcasm fades into grim resolve, survive the night, unravel the web tomorrow, like debugging a glitchy app but with lives on the line. The absurd venom tattoos idea resurfaces, their burn on your own skin as loyalty's price. Debate swirls calculated or chaotic. The betrayal's a mirror to Empire's instability. Modern-like union busting from within, trust eroded for profit. The chill deepens, psychological undercurrent of isolation amplified, ranks now a minefield of knives unseen. The chill deepens, psychological undercurrent of isolation amplified, ranks now a minefield of knives unseen. You enter quietly, wound hidden under tunic, the damp air welcoming like an old foe, metallic tang lingering as a sentinel of pain. Guards nod suspiciously, eyes biting sharper than daggers, betrayal's shadow lengthening over all. The chill deepens, psychological undercurrent of isolation amplified, ranks now a minefield of knives unseen. The cells hum with subdued whispers, potential threats now laced with internal ones, mood tilting toward the high-profile storm brewing. Did you know that in Imperial China, emperors like those of the Ming dynasty could execute over 1,000 officials in a single purge based on nothing more than a dream or a misinterpreted omen, turning the throne's favour into a deadly lottery where even loyal servants like you could be next? The emperor's whims shift like sand beneath your feet as you kneel in the grand audience hall, the polished marble floor cold and unyielding against your knees, sending a shiver up your spine that merges with the damp chill now mutating into a draughty gust from open lattice windows, carrying the faint scent of incense mingled with the acrid smoke of distant forges, making your eyes water and your throat tighten, as if the air itself conspires to choke the life from you before the ruler's words can. You bow low, forehead pressing against the stone etched with imperial dragons that seem to writhe in the flickering torchlight mounted on gilded pillars. The flames now leaping erratically as a sudden breeze sweeps through, casting shadows that elongate your prostrate form into something grotesque and servile. A sensory struggle where the metallic tang returns sharper than ever, biting into your tongue from the fear-clenched jaw, evolving from copper to a coppery edge of impending blood as adrenaline floods your system. The physical event erupts when the Emperor's voice booms from the throne, a silk-robed figure shrouded in opulent veils. declaring that the bamboo vigil you oversaw was too lenient. The merchant survived an extra day, interpreted as mercy that borders on treason, and you feel the guard's hands clamp on your shoulders, hauling you upright with bruising force, their armored grips digging into flesh like accusations manifest. A shocking element lightly dramatized in how your heart hammers, echoing the sad fate of predecessors who vanished into the very cells they once commanded. With light sarcasm whispering in your mind like the shifting sands, you think how this tops modern performance reviews where a bad quarter gets you fired. But here, it's a whim that could end with your head on a spike. No severance package or unemployment line, just eternal disgrace for your kin. The torchlight mutates further, its glow filtering through the hall's crimson banners into a bloody haze that paints the Emperor's face in demonic hues, illuminating the metallic tang source as you taste blood from a bitten lip, the motif grating with renewed intensity amid the opulent squalor of power's facade. You revisit the bamboo grove with a surprising twist, the Emperor revealing through a eunuch scroll that the merchant's prolonged suffering was a test you failed by not accelerating it with forbidden poisons, turning your vigilance into evidence of weakness. The grove's slow pierce now a symbol of your own teetering doom, its shoots metaphorically reaching for you across the palace divide. Historians still debate whether such imperial whims were calculated strategies to keep underlings in perpetual fear, or genuine paranoia fueled by isolation at the top. But as you're dragged to a side chamber for reflection, the uncertainty feels like sand slipping through your fingers, each grain a lost chance at stability. The absurd historical tidbit emerges in the chaos. Emperors sometimes consulted, tortoise shells cracked in fire for divinations on executions, shells perched on altars where you'd wait, the heat mirroring the fickle heat of favour, a primitive RNG dictating lives like a cosmic dice roll. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the palace sprawls like a gilded desert, its halls shifting dunes where loyalties bury and unearth with every wind of decree, connecting your precarious edge to the vast, unforgiving landscape of dynastic caprice, empires built on the quicksand of one man's mood. But you steady your breath as the guards release you in the chamber, the door slamming with finality, and you pace the silk-carpeted floor, the softness underfoot a cruel contrast to the hardness of your fate. Sensory struggle intensifying as incense smoke coils around you, cloying and suffocating, blending with sweat from the drafty chill that sneaks through cracks, making your skin prickle like impending storm. In a clever commentary, you muse that the Emperor's shifts are like algorithm changes on social media platforms, burying content creators overnight without warning, but amplified here with real burials, no appeals to customer service, just the doom of disfavour. The eunuch enters, his powdered face impassive, handing you a new assignment, a highborn noble suspected of plotting, whose torture must be exquisite to regain favour. A sad twist, where empathy for the merchant now risks your neck, lightly dramatising the human cost as you recall his final gasps. Now a chain linking you to this teetering precipice. Modern comparison hits hard, worse than gig workers at the mercy of app ratings, where a low score means no gigs. But here, it's no life. The whims a rating system rigged by divine right. The torchlight from wall sconces flickers in rhythm with your pounding pulse, shadows playing across tapestries depicting heroic ancestors who never faced such sand-like instability, the metallic tang evolving into a salty bite from tears you swallow back, grating on raw nerves. Laowei slips in through a servant's door, his twist surprising as he confesses he's forged documents to cover your leniency, risking his own doom to save you, turning mentorship into a fragile alliance against the shifting sands, his scarred hand clasping yours in a brief, sweaty grip that grounds you amid the whirl. The debate rages inwardly were Emperor's caprices signs of madness or masterful control, keeping the court in eternal imbalance. Either way, you nod gratitude, the incense thickening to a haze that blurs vision, sensory overload peaking as the draft carries whispers of court intrigue, chilling your core despite the chamber's warmth. Sarcasm surfaces again, brilliant system, where the boss's mood swings decide if you eat or get eaten, like a toxic startup culture on steroids. You exit with the scroll, guards eyeing you warily, the hall's grandeur now a mocking facade as sands of favour shift anew, the Emperor's distant laughter echoing like thunder over dunes. The noble awaits in a gilded cell, his refined features paling at your approach, and you begin preparations, tools clinking with ominous promise, the torchlight steadying into a focused beam that highlights his trembling hands, a visual reminder of power's fragility. But doubt swirls like the incense, teetering on doom's edge as you question if this act will stabilize your position or bury you deeper. The metallic tang sharpens from the blade you sharpen, biting like fate's irony, and the draft mutates into a whispering gale through the lattices, carrying scents of blooming night jasmine from Imperial gardens, a sensory irony amid the doom. Zooming out once more, the throne's whims ripple across the empire like desert winds sculpting vast landscapes, where individuals like you are grains reshaped or scattered, the grand design indifferent to personal teeterings. The noble pleads lineage, his voice cracking, a shocking humanization that echoes the merchant's, sad in its universality of fear under fickle rule. Clever commentary emperors playing God with sandcastles, kicking them down on a whim, while you scramble to rebuild. Lao Wei's forgery weighs in your pouch, a twist that could save or damn, adding layers to the edge you walk. Historians argue over records of such purges, wondering if exaggerated for propaganda or understated to hide madness. Compared to presidential tweets shaking markets today, it's personal, no screens buffering the blow. The session looms, tools ready, the torchlight casting your shadow over him like an encroaching storm. The damp chill from open skies above the courtyard mutating into a misty rain that slicks everything. Sensory struggle in the slipperiness underfoot. You hesitate, the sands shifting underfoot metaphorically, doom teetering as empathy battles survival. Guards outside murmur, their loyalty is fickle, and you proceed, the first question hanging in the air like suspended sand. The metallic tang lingers, grating eternally, sensory motif a constant in this unstable world. The noble confesses fragments, but his eyes hold secrets, a psychological undercurrent pulling you toward potential alliance or deeper peril. The incense fades slightly, replaced by the scent of fear, sensory struggle evolving into a nauseous blend that turns your stomach. But the Emperor's whim demands results, teetering you further on the edge, mood shifting toward the chaos of favor's fragile balance. The chamber door creaks open, a messenger arriving with another decree, his face pale, turning the teetering into a plummet as words spill forth. The Emperor demands a public demonstration, your skills on display for the court, doom or redemption hinging on performance. The torchlight flares wildly, shadows lunging, a strange visual of dancing fates entwined with dragons on the wall. Or is that chill from realizing the sands never settle, only shift to bury or expose, mood tilting toward the abyss of imperial caprice? The messenger bows out, leaving you with the noble, the draft howling now like laughter from the throne, the metallic tang a bitter promise of trials unending. You bind him gently, irony in the care amid doom, and lead him out, the hall's echoing steps like grains falling in an hourglass of favor. Lao Wei joins discreetly, his twist a whispered plan to sabotage subtly if needed, alliance deepening the teeter. The absurd tidbit some emperors use sand-filled hourglasses for timing tortures, grains measuring mercy's limit, a temporal whim in physical form, debate persists control or chaos, modern like CEOs firing via email blasts, impersonal yet devastating. The court assembles, eyes on you, the emperor's gaze a shifting dune, teetering intensified under scrutiny. The demonstration begins, tools gleaming, the damp chill from open skies mutating into a misty rain that slicks everything, sensory struggle in the slipperiness underfoot. The noble winces, sad in his nobility reduced, shocking in the crowd's hushed anticipation. Zooming out, the Empire's heart beats in such spectacles, whims sculpting history's dunes where you balance precariously. Sarcasm, primetime entertainment, ancient style. No commercials, but plenty of cuts. The rain intensifies, torchlight hissing, shadows watery and wavering, metallic tang diluted but persistent. Favor teetering as you perform, the edge knife sharp, doom one misstep away. The Emperor nods slightly, sand stabilizing for now, but the chill remains, psychological undercurrent of eternal uncertainty. The noble slumps, confession complete, a visual of broken elegance amid the wet stone. Guards applaud faintly, mood shifting to tentative relief laced with dread's residue. But whispers resume, court intrigues swirling like sandstorms, the teeter never truly over. You retreat, Lao Wei at your side, his twist a vow of mutual protection against the whims. The metallic tang fades in the rain-washed air, but the damp clings, sensory motif a reminder of instability's soak. Historians question if survival in such courts was skill or luck, debate as fickle as the emperors themselves. Compared to lottery wins today, it's rigged against you. No tickets out. The night falls, palace lights flickering like unstable stars, a strange visual of illuminated sands hiding dark voids. Did you know that in ancient China, torturers like you were believed to carry the miasma of death so potently that their mere presence could wilt flowers or sour wine in nearby taverns? A superstition rooted in the real psychological toll that turned many into recluses haunted by invisible stains, lingering scents of blood cling to your skin as you stumble into your hovel after the court's demonstration. The metallic tang now mutating into a cloying coppery residue that seeps from your pores like an indelible perfume, mixing with the sweat-soaked hemp of your tunic that sticks to you in clammy patches, making every movement a sensory struggle where the fabric pulls and chafes against raw flesh. The damp chill from the evening rain outside evolving into a bone-deep shiver that rattles through you as if the palace's marble cold has followed you home. Torchlight from a single oil lamp on your crude table, flickering weakly to cast trembling shadows on the mud-plastered walls, illuminating cracks that weep moisture like silent tears. You collapse onto the reed mat, the thin barrier doing little to shield you from the earthen floor's filth, and as you close your eyes, phantom cries erupt in the silence of your mind. Not echoes, but vivid hauntings the merchant's gasps from the bamboo, the noble's pleas from the hall swelling into a cacophony that vibrates through your skull, a physical event where your body jerks involuntarily, hands clutching at ears to block what isn't there, the cries twisting into accusations that pin you down heavier than any chain, a shocking element lightly dramatized in how they blend with memories of your own suppressed sobs from childhood poverty that drove you to this cursed trade. With light sarcasm drifting through the haze like a mocking breeze, you think how this beats modern insomnia from doom-scrolling late-night feeds, where at least the ghosts are digital and deletable. But here, they're etched in auditory scars that no amount of wine can drown. No logout button to escape the replay. The torchlight, or rather, the lamp's feeble imitation mutates into a sputtering glow that dances across your vision even behind closed lids, casting internal shadows where faces of the condemned morph and accuse, the metallic tang sharpening on your tongue as you bite down in frustration. Grating like the grind of regret on worn teeth, you revisit the Emperor's throne room with a surprising twist, the opulent veils now haunting your dreams as translucent barriers through which the ruler's face leers, revealing in nightmare logic that the eunuch who delivered your reprieve was actually a disguised relative of the noble you broke, plotting subtle revenge that could manifest in poisoned assignments or false accusations, turning your hard-won favour into a fragile illusion crumbling under spectral weight. Historians still debate whether such hauntings were mere folklore to deter would-be torturers, or documented cases of what we'd call PTSD today, with records of executioners seeking exorcists to banish blood spirits that drove them to madness. But as the cries intensify, layering over each other like overlapping waves, you feel the uncertainty like a veil over sanity, questioning if this is retribution from ancestors, or just the mind's cruel theatre. The absurd historical tidbit flickers in your thoughts amid the turmoil torturers sometimes bathed in vinegar, mixed with chrysanthemum petals, believing it neutralized the blood scent and warded off phantoms. A floral acid ritual performed under moonlight to cleanse what water couldn't touch. A desperate alchemy against the invisible taint. Zooming out for a poetic moment, your small hovel expands in perception to a microcosm of the Empire's undercurrents, where individual nights of torment ripple into the collective sea of unrest. Each phantom cry a droplet echoing the vast ocean of suppressed voices that could one day flood the throne's foundations. But you rise unsteadily, pacing the cramped space to shake off the cries, the sensory struggle peaking as the blood scent wafts stronger with movement, nauseating and inescapable, blending with the musty rot from leaking roof that drips steadily onto the floor. each plop a rhythmic torment syncing with your pulse. In a clever commentary, you muse that it's ironic how the Empire glorifies warriors who spill blood in battle, yet shuns those who do it in shadows, like celebrating chefs but despising the butchers who provide the meat. A hypocrisy that leaves you haunted while generals sleep soundly. The lamp's light steadies momentarily, illuminating a crude mirror shard where your reflection stares back hollow-eyed. A sad reminder of the vitality drained night by night, lightly dramatizing the toll as wrinkles etch deeper, ghosts carving their marks on living flesh. Modern comparison surfaces like a lifeline worse than night shift, workers hallucinating from sleep deprivation. At least they have unions and coffee breaks. But here, the hauntings are your only company. No HR to file complaints against spectral harassment. The cries subside briefly, allowing a gasp of relief, but the blood scent clings stubbornly, a constant companion that turns even simple acts like eating cold congee into revulsion, the spoon's metallic edge amplifying the tang on your lips, grating eternally. Lao Wei knocks softly at the door, his twist unfolding as he enters with a bundle of herbs, confessing in hushed tones that he's suffered the same phantoms for years, once driving him to attempt desertion only to be dragged back by Imperial trackers. His alliance now a shared vigil against the Knight's invasions, handing you a sachet that smells faintly of sandalwood to mask the blood. A small act of empathy in the gloom. The debate whispers in your mind were these haunting psychological breakdowns from isolation, or genuine supernatural backlash. As some chronicles claim torturers' homes were avoided even by stray cats sensing the aura. Either way, you hang the sachet, its aroma warring with the blood, sensory overload mutating into a dizzying clash that spins the room slightly, the damp chill deepening as midnight approaches, seeping through cracks like insidious fingers. Sarcasm curls your lip perfect. Now you're an amateur aromatherapist in Hell's Spa, where relaxation comes with a side of screams. Better than essential oils trending on TikTok but with 0 likes for your suffering. The phantom cries return softer, insidious, weaving into dreams as you lie down again, the mat's reeds poking like accusatory fingers, physical discomfort mirroring the mental siege. Zooming out once more, the city's lanterns twinkle distantly through your shutter, a constellation of normal lives untouched by your taint, where nights bring rest instead of reckoning, your isolation a dark star in the Empire's vast night sky. The blood scent fades under the herbs but lingers faintly, a psychological undercurrent that promises no true escape. Shifting mood toward the betrayal brewing in waking hours. You toss fitfully, the lamp guttering low, shadows pooling like spilled ink on the walls, a strange visual of inky figures reaching out in silent supplication. Or is that chill from the realization that the cries might not be phantoms at all, but harbingers of a deeper unravelling, mood tilting toward the rank's fracturing dawn? The herb's scent strengthens, battling the blood, but the metallic tang lingers, evolving into a bitter residue that coats your mouth, grating with venom's imagined burn. Lao Wei leaves with a nod, his footsteps fading into the rain outside, leaving you alone with the cry's residue, the damp enveloping like a shroud. One cry stands out, the woman's from earlier, her adultery now a spectral lament twisting with the nobles, sad in their unified accusation against your hand in their fates. Shocking how the mind archives each voice, replaying them in high fidelity without mercy, lightly dramatized as tears well unbidden, blurring the lamp's glow. Clever commentary, memory's the ultimate torturer. No tools needed, just endless loops worse than a bad playlist on repeat. The absurd tidbit resurfaces some torturers wore amulets carved from executed bones, believing it bound the spirits to obedience. A macabre jewellery that rattled with movement, adding auditory hauntings to the mix. Historians argue if this was coping mechanism or desperate superstition, blurring lines between sanity and folklore. Compared to therapy apps today, it's DIY horror, no guided meditations, just bone-chilling relics. The night drags, cries ebbing and flowing like tides, the sensory struggle in the conflicting scents, creating a nauseous haze that turns sleep elusive. You rise to pace again, the floor's chill biting through bare feet, mutating the damp into icy needles that prick with each step. The mirror shard reflects a fractured self, shadows splitting your face into multiples, a visual metaphor for the splintered soul. Lao Wei's herbs hang like a talisman, their twist a fragile hope against the onslaught, but doubt creeps will they suffice, or invite more. The metallic tang dulls under the sandalwood, but grates faintly, a reminder of stains unseen, modern aside like earworms from catchy songs. But these tunes are dirges that drain the spirit. The lamp dims to embers, shadows swallowing the room in a strange visual of encroaching void, dotted with herbal glow. Did you know that in the Song dynasty, betrayals among Imperial torturers were so rampant that some were forced to ink loyalty oaths directly onto their skin, with needles dipped in scorpion venom, creating tattoos that burned for weeks as a constant reminder of the pain of disloyalty? Betrayal from within the ranks bites deeper than any knife you wield as you meet Lao Wei in the shadowed alcove of the palace stables at midnight, the air heavy with the musky odour of hay and horse sweat that clings to your nostrils like a traitor's whisper, making your throat constrict in a sensory struggle, where the damp chill mutates into a prickly humidity from the animals' warm breaths steaming in the cool night, torchlight from a hanging lantern flickering erratically to cast jittery shadows on the wooden beams, illuminating Lao Wei's scarred face twisting into an expression you've never seen. Not camaraderie, but cold calculation as he leans in close, his breath hot and sour against your ear, revealing in hushed tones that he's been feeding information to the White Lotus rebels about your recent demonstrations, turning your fragile alliance into a venomous trap that coils around your chest tighter than any rope you've ever knotted. The physical event explodes when he presses a concealed dagger against your side, the blade's edge nicking through your tunic just enough to draw a thin line of warmth trickling down your ribs, a shocking element lightly dramatized in the sting that mirrors the deeper wound of trust shattered, his eyes gleaming in the torchlight now mutating into a sinister red glow from the lantern's tinted glass, casting blood-hued patterns on the hay-strewn floor where your feet shift instinctively, the metallic tang surging back onto your tongue sharper than before, evolving from copper to a venomous bite that grates like ground glass with every swallow as adrenaline floods your system. With light sarcasm echoing in your mind like a bitter laugh, you think how this tops modern office backstabbing where a colleague steals your idea for a promotion. But here, it's literal stabbing with no HR mediation or exit interview. Just the raw bite of survival in a world where ranks devour their own. You twist away, grabbing his wrist in a desperate grapple that sends you both tumbling into a pile of straw, the fibers scratching your skin like accusing fingers while hooves stamp nervously in nearby stalls, the sensory struggle intensifying as dust chokes the air, blending with the horse musk into a suffocating cloud that burns your lungs, forcing coughs that rattle your frame amid the scuffle. The factual moment slips in naturally as you recall how during the Wan dynasty, torturer guilds formed secret pacts to protect against imperial purges, but often dissolved into internal vendettas over shares of confiscated prisoner goods, turning brothers in arms into bitter foes overnight, a cycle of betrayal that fueled the Empire's paranoia and kept the throne secure by pitting the lowly against each other. Historians still argue whether these rank betrayals were orchestrated by higher officials to prevent unified uprisings or organic fractures born from the moral rot of the job. But as Lao Wei hisses accusations of your growing empathy making you a liability, you feel the debate irrelevant, the bite of his words sinking deeper than the dagger's nick, a psychological undercurrent that erodes the last shreds of camaraderie you've clung to in this isolated hell. The absurd historical tidbit flashes amid the chaos torturers sometimes sealed pacts with blood mixed into ink for signing clandestine documents. But if betrayal occurred, the ink was said to curdle on the page like an omen, a superstitious ritual that added layers of dread to every alliance. Papers hidden in hollow bamboo stalks to evade spies. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the stables expand in your frantic perception to a micro-arena of the Empire's treacherous underbelly, where beasts of burden mirror the burdened souls toiling in shadows, each snort and stampy echo of the larger betrayals rippling through courtly webs, connecting your personal skirmish to the vast tapestry of dynastic intrigue where loyalty frays like worn reins, but you counter with a knee to his gut, the impact jarring your own bones as he gasps, dropping the dagger with a clatter that rings against a metal feed bucket, the metallic tang amplifying from the sound, grating harshly as you scramble for the weapon, your hands slick with sweat and straw dust. sensory overload peaking in the prickly itch crawling up your arms like invisible insects feasting on your panic. In a clever commentary, you muse inwardly that betrayal here is like a plot twist in a bad spy novel, but without the heroic escape. Just the gritty reality of hay in your eyes and a former mentor's face contorted in rage. Ironic how the ones who taught you to extract truths now peddle lies for personal gain. The sad element emerges lightly dramatized as Lao Wei wheezes about his motives, a dying family member needing rebel gold for medicine, humanizing the traitor even as you pin him down. Empathy warring with survival in a heartbreaking tangle that leaves you questioning if anyone in these ranks escapes unscarred. Modern comparison bites as sharply as the betrayal itself, worse than discovering a friend leaked your secrets on social media for clout. At least there the damage is digital and forgivable with time, but here it's etched in flesh and fate with no unfollow to sever ties. The torchlight steadies momentarily, highlighting the dagger's gleam in your grasp, shadows stabilizing into stark contrasts on Lao Wei's pleading features. The metallic tang now mingled with the salty bite of blood from your side, grating in a dual symphony of pain and peril. You hesitate, the stable's humidity wrapping around you like a conspiratorial fog, sensory struggle in the conflicting urges to strike or spare. But he lunges again, forcing your hand to deflect, the blade skittering away into darkness as you roll apart, breaths heaving in unison like reluctant dance partners in this deadly waltz. Sarcasm surfaces amid the standoff brilliant. Now it's a game of hide-and-seek with death in a barn. Better than those team-building exercises that build nothing but resentment. Lao Wei circles warily, his twist deepening as he reveals the eunuch's involvement. The same one from the throne room who forged your reprieve, only to set this trap, turning the Emperor's whims into a puppet show where you're the marionette strung by hidden hands. Alliance revealed as illusion all along. The debate churns and your split-second thoughts were botched alliances, deliberate sabotage by sympathetic torturers, or accidental sparks in powder kegs of discontent. Either way, you dodge his grab, slamming into a stall door that creaks open, a horse whinnying in alarm as you use the distraction to retrieve the dagger. The cool metal in your palm a sensory anchor amid the chaos, its tang biting anew on your tongue from exertion's metallic aftertaste. Zooming out once more, the palace grounds loom beyond the stables like a silent colossus, its towers indifferent witnesses to the micro-betrayals that sustain its might. Where every rank's fracture is a brick in the wall of control, your struggle a mere tremor in the grand edifice. The horse rears slightly, hooves thudding like judgments, adding to the sensory whirlwind as straw swirls in eddies, itching your wounds and blurring vision. You confront him directly, dagger raised, the shocking humanity in his tear-streaked face sad in its vulnerability, lightly dramatizing the fall from mentor to monster, empathy nearly disarming you until his lunge reminds you of the bite's depth. Clever commentary, life's full of plot holes, like trusting the guy who taught you to torture not to turn the tables, a narrative flip worse than a season finale cliffhanger. The torchlight sputters from the disturbance, shadows lunging wildly like spectral allies in the fray, the metallic tang evolving into a venomous residue that coats your mouth, grating with venom's imagined burn. Guards' voices echo distantly, drawn by the noise, forcing a hasty end as you disarm him with a slash to his sleeve. Not fatal, but warning, his retreat into the night a blur of shadows, leaving you panting amid the hay, betrayal's bite throbbing in your side like a living wound. The absurd tidbit lingers. Some betrayals were sealed with shared meals of scorpion-stewed rice, believed to bind fates but often leading to poisoned bowls, a culinary curse in the rank's dark cuisine. Historians debate if these acts strengthened or weakened the system, paranoia breeding efficiency or collapse. Compared to corporate whistleblowers facing retaliation, it's primal, no lawyers, just lanterns and lies. The stable's quiet, horses settling with uneasy snorts, the humidity cooling into damp mist that soothes yet chills your cuts. Sensory shift or uneasy truce. You bind the wound with torn cloth, the fabric sticking to blood in a sensory tug, the torchlight dimming to embers that glow like watchful eyes on the beams. Lao Wei's fleeing form fades into memory, his twist a scar on trust, leaving you to ponder the rank's rotting core. The metallic tang dulls but persists, grating faintly as you slip out, the night enveloping you in fog-shrouded paths back to the dungeons. Guards pass without notice, their torches' distant flickers, a visual of isolated lights in enveloping dark, mirroring your newfound solitude. Or is that chill from knowing betrayal's bite festers, spreading to poison every alliance, mood shifting toward the chaos of a spiraling execution ahead? Did you know that during the Ming Dynasty, a botched, high-profile execution once sparked a riot that killed over 100 spectators, all because the crowd believed a fumbled beheading signaled divine displeasure with the Emperor's rule? A high-profile execution spirals into chaos as you stand on the elevated wooden platform in the bustling market square at midday, the sun beating down mercilessly on your exposed neck, turning the damp chill from last night's mist into a sweltering humidity that soaks your ceremonial robe, a threadbare garment reserved for public spectacles, making it cling to your skin like a second layer of guilt. The fabric heavy and itching with embedded dust from the throng below, where thousands of faces blur into a sea of anticipation, their collective body heat rising like steam from a cauldron, forcing a sensory struggle as sweat stings your eyes and mixes with the acrid tang of fear sweat from the condemned noble kneeling before you, his silk bindings already damp and dark. You raise the heavy executioner's sword, its blade glinting in the harsh light that mutates the flickering torchlight motif into blinding solar flares reflecting off the metal, casting rainbow prisms across the crowd that momentarily dazzle you, the metallic tang evolving into a gritty iron bite on your tongue from clenching your jaw so hard your teeth ache, grating like sandpaper on raw nerves as your hands tremble slightly, the weapon's weight pulling at muscles fatigued from sleepless nights haunted by phantom cries. The physical event ignites when you swing downward, aiming for a clean sever, but the noble jerks at the last second, perhaps from a final spasm of defiance or sheer terror, and the blade glances off his shoulder instead of the neck, drawing a spray of blood that arcs through the air like crimson rain, splattering your face and the front row of spectators, a shocking element lightly dramatized in the guttural roar that erupts from the crowd, their cheers turning to gasps and then angry murmurs as superstition takes hold, whispers spreading like wildfire that this botch is an omen against the throne, your trembling hands now the unwitting catalyst for unrest. With light sarcasm curling in your thoughts amid the pandemonium, you think how this beats a viral fail video on modern social media, where a slip-up gets laughs and likes. But here, it could cost heads. Yours included no edit button to redo the take, just the raw chaos of a crowd turning feral. The sword feels heavier now, slick with blood that warms your palms in a grotesque embrace. Sensory overload peaking as the noble's agonized howl pierces the din, blending with the crowd's swelling shouts. The humidity amplifying every sound into a thunderous assault on your ears, while the sun's glare blinds you to the edges where guards shift uneasily. A factual moment folds in as you recall how in the Qing era, public executions were staged as moral theatre to reinforce Confucian order, with high-profile ones like this for nobles accused of corruption drawing the masses to witness justice, but often backfiring into riots if perceived as flawed, fueling peasant uprisings that toppled local officials. Historians still debate whether these spectacles strengthened imperial authority or sowed seeds of rebellion by exposing the system's brutality to the masses. But as the noble writhes, clutching his wounded shoulder, you feel the uncertainty like a noose tightening. Your role in this theatre now a precarious tightrope over a pit of mob fury. The absurd historical tidbit crosses your mind in the frenzy executioners sometimes wore masks fashioned from boiled leather soaked in vinegar to disguise their features and ward off evil spirits stirred by botched kills. A pungent veil that added to the sensory horrors but offered scant protection from crowd stones. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the square transforms into a churning vortex of human tide, waves of bodies crashing against the platform's barriers like a storm-tossed sea, each ripple of discontent echoing the Empire's fragile harmony, where one misplaced stroke can unleash tempests that reshape dynasties. But you recover, guards rushing forward to restrain the noble as stones begin to fly from the back, one grazing your temple with a sharp sting that draws your own blood, mixing with his on your skin in a sad confluence of shared mortality, lightly dramatizing the irony that you, the inflictor, now bleed alongside the inflicted. Empathy surging unbidden for this man whose only crime was crossing a rival courtier with fabricated evidence. In a clever commentary, you muse that it's like performing surgery in a stadium full of hecklers, where a tremor turns the audience into surgeons themselves, judging your every move with pitchfork precision. The crowd's roar crescendos, chants of "Omen Omen," all rippling through the masses, and you swing again, hands steadier this time from sheer adrenaline, the blade connecting true with a sickening thud that silences the noble forever. But the chaos spirals further as a faction surges the barriers, overwhelming a guard and toppling him into the dirt, his helmet rolling like a discarded crown amid stamping feet. Modern comparison hits like a thrown stone worse than a celebrity meltdown on live TV where security whisks them away. Here there's no velvet rope, just the bite of real violence from a crowd empowered by your mistake. No bodyguards with earpieces, only spears that waver in hesitant hands. The torchlight now from actual torches lit by agitators in the throng flares into existence despite the daylight, mutating the solar glare into smoky veils that choke the air, the metallic tang sharpening from blood to the sooty bite of burning pitch, grating on your throat as you cough amid the melee. You revisit Lao Wei with a surprising twist, spotting him in the crowd's edge not as a betrayer fleeing but as an instigator shouting slogans, his scarred face contorted in revolutionary zeal, revealing his earlier dagger play was a feint to push you toward this moment of doubt, his alliance a long con to recruit you into the rebellion by exposing the system's flaws through your own trembling execution. The debate rages in your split-second thoughts. Were botched executions deliberate sabotage by sympathetic torturers, or accidental sparks in powder kegs of discontent? Either way, you leap from the platform as guards form a phalanx, sword discarded in favor of a seized spear, the weapon's shaft splintery in your grip, sensory struggle in the chaos of pushing through bodies that claw and shove, the humidity turning to a slick of sweat and spilled vendor wares underfoot, slipping like oil on marble. Sarcasm bubbles up fantastic, from executioner to riot participant in one swing, like going viral for all the wrong reasons without the ad revenue. The noble's headless body slumps forgotten on the platform, a sad symbol of wasted nobility amid the stampede, lightly dramatized by a child's cry lost in the tumult, innocence trampled in the spiral's wake. Clever commentary, the Empire's justice, a house of cards built on blades, collapsing at the first quiver of human error. Ironic how your hands tremble echoes the throne's shaky foundations. Guards rally around you, their loyalty fracturing as some join the fray against you. Betrayals bite from the ranks, resurfacing in punches and shouts, the sun dipping behind sudden clouds that cast the square in ominous shade, mutating the light into a diffused gloom where faces blur into anonymous threats. The metallic tang evolves further, now from clashing weapons ringing like discordant bells, grating on your ears amid the roar. Sensory motif, a symphony of discord that drowns empathy in survival's din. Zooming out once more, the market square swells to an arena of imperial fragility, a coliseum where the lions are the people themselves, unleashed by a single misstroke to devour the gladiators of order. Your chaos, a microcosm of the dynasty's inevitable falls, but you fight through, spear-jabbing defensively as you retreat toward palace gates, the crowd's surge ebbing slightly under reinforcements' arrival, arrows whistling overhead like judgments from above. The absurd tidbit amid the retreat, some execution platforms were rigged with hidden trapdoors for quick escapes during riots, oiled hinges allowing torturers to vanish like stage magicians, a theatrical flourish in the horror show of justice. Historians argue if these riots accelerated reforms or hardened repressions. Debate as chaotic as the scene itself. Compared to flash mobs gone wrong in today's protests, it's primal, no hashtags, just hash marks from wounds. The gates loom closer, but a stray arrow grazes your arm, drawing fresh warmth that mixes with sweat in a stinging trail. Sensory struggle in the bite that reminds you of fragility amid the mob's press. Guards falling back as the chaos peaks. Lao Wei's face lost in the throng, but his twist burning like an open wound. You breach the gates, the heavy doors slamming shut behind, muffling the roar to a distant thunder, but the trembling persists in your limbs, a psychological chill settling as you realize the execution spiral has marked you not just as enforcer, but as a symbol of the Empire's cracking facade. Mood shifting toward the ghosts that will haunt this night's restless vigil. The courtyard inside falls silent, save for your ragged breaths, the sun's rays piercing through clouds to cast long shadows on the stone, a strange visual of barred light trapping you in patterns like invisible chains. Did you know that in Imperial China, some torturers were so tormented by visions of their victims that they petitioned for exile to remote borderlands, only to find the ghosts followed them across mountains, whispering accusations in the wind-swept silence? Ghosts of past victims lurk in the cold stone walls as you lean against the dungeon's icy surface during a rare lull in duties, the chill seeping through your tunic like fingers from the grave, numbing your back and making your breath visible in faint puffs that hang in the air like unspoken confessions, the dampness now mutating into a frozen grip that crystallizes sweat on your skin into prickly frost. A sensory struggle where every exhale carries the weight of accumulated sins, turning the simple act of resting into a battle against the encroaching numbness that mirrors the erosion of your sanity. You close your eyes for a moment, but the darkness behind your lids fills with ethereal forms, translucent figures of the merchant from the bamboo grove, and the woman from the chains materializing like mist rising from the floor, their silent accusations boring into you with eyes that glow faintly in the mind's gloom, a physical event where your body tenses involuntarily, muscles locking as if invisible hands clutch at your throat, the pressure building until you gasp, snapping your eyes open to the flickering torchlight mounted on the wall, its flame now mutating into a pale, ghostly blue from some draft-born illusion, casting wavering shadows that twist the stones into leering faces, the metallic tang returning to your tongue sharper than before, evolving into an icy bite that grates like frozen iron shards with every swallow, as if the walls themselves exhale the essence of death, with light sarcasm drifting through your frayed thoughts like a cold draft. You think how this beats modern ghost hunting shows where enthusiasts chase bumps in the night with gadgets and glee. But here, the hauntings chase you. No commercial breaks or skeptical debunking, just the relentless erosion of your mind in a job that turns living men into spectral judges. The torchlight sputters weakly, illuminating faint scratches on the wall marks from previous prisoners clawing for freedom that now seem to form words of condemnation. A shocking element lightly dramatized in how one etching resembles the scholar's plea for mercy, his intellectual fire reduced to silent scratches that accuse you of snuffing out not just lives but ideas, stirring a sad pang of regret for the knowledge lost in the name of imperial order. Historians still argue whether these ghostly visitations were collective hallucinations fueled by opium-laced rations given to torturers for endurance, or genuine spiritual retributions tied to Confucian beliefs in ancestral vengeance. But as the figures solidify in your peripheral vision, whispering names you can't quite hear, you feel the debate dissolve into personal terror, sanity fraying like the edges of your tunic under constant wear. The absurd historical tidbits surfaces amid the chill torturers sometimes slept with jade amulets pressed to their foreheads, believing the stone absorbed spectral energies like a cold compress for fevered souls, a gemstone ritual that left indentations on skin but offered little relief from the accusations that burrowed deeper than any blade. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the dungeon walls extend infinitely in your wavering sight, a fortress of stone imprisoning not just bodies but echoes of the Empire's conscience, where each accusation is a crack in the mortar of power, threatening to bring the whole edifice crumbling down in silent judgment. But you push away from the wall, the cold stone leaving a numb imprint on your flesh, sensory struggle intensifying as the chill spreads to your fingertips, making them tingle with phantom pins that mimic the bamboo's slow pierce, forcing you to flex your hands repeatedly to restore feeling, while the ghosts fade slightly, lurking just beyond the torch's reach, their presence a constant undercurrent eroding your resolve like water wearing away rock. In a clever commentary, you muse that it's ironic how you, master of inflicting pain, now endure this silent siege from the departed, like a chef poisoned by his own recipes, the flavors of regret turning bitter on the palate of memory. The metallic tang sharpens further, now laced with a salty undernote from unshed tears, grating on your senses as you pace the corridor, the damp air thickening into a fog that blurs the boundaries between real and spectral, sanity teetering on the edge of collapse. You revisit the bamboo grove with a surprising twist, the merchant's ghost not accusing but pleading for release from limbo, revealing in hallucinatory whispers that his spirit is bound to you until you atone by sabotaging a future execution. turning past victims into reluctant guides that challenge your loyalty to the throne. Their silent accusations now laced with desperate bargains that erode your will further. Modern comparison chills like the stone itself, worse than scrolling through old texts from exes that haunt your phone. At least those can be deleted. But here, the messages from the dead etch themselves into your psyche with no block button. Eternal notifications of guilt popping up in quiet moments. The torchlight steadies into a dim pulse, shadows stabilizing but still whispering shapes on the walls. The metallic tang persisting as a grating reminder of blood spilled and souls unquiet. Lao Wei's betrayal echoes in your mind, his twist mutating the ghosts into echoes of his warnings, their accusations blending with his voice in a chorus that questions every alliance, sanity fraying under the dual assault of past and present treacheries. Sarcasm curls faintly great. Now your head's a haunted house party, invite only for the damned, better than VR horror games where you can take off the headset. But this immersion never ends. The cold walls pressing closer, as if alive with the trapped essences, sensory overload in the chill that now numbs your entire side, forcing you to rub vigorously for warmth, but the ghosts persist. Their silent stares a psychological chill that freezes thought itself, eroding the barriers between duty and despair. Zooming out once more, the palace above revels in silken song, oblivious to the subterranean erosion where walls hold the Empire's buried secrets. Each accusation a termite gnawing at the foundations. Your sanity the first casualty in the slow collapse. But you stagger onward, the corridor stretching endlessly, the torch's flame waning to a mere spark that casts minimal light, leaving the ghosts to dominate the dark, their forms more solid in the gloom. The absurd jade amulets idea mocks you, imagining one around your neck, its cool weight a false comfort against the heat of inner turmoil. Historians debate if these hauntings drove torturers to rebellion or resignation, uncertainty amplifying the chill as you wander your own path. Compared to therapy sessions unpacking trauma today, it's solo, no couch, just cold stone and colder accusations. The metallic tang dulls to a persistent ache, grating softly as you reach a cell door, the ghosts hovering behind like faithful shadows. Sanity's erosion, a quiet tide washing away resolve. Guards nod warily from afar, their faces blurring into victim-like masks in your vision. A strange visual of living ghosts mingling with the dead, the walls alive with silent judgment. Or is that chill from the dawning fear that the accusations are justified? Mood shifting toward the ultimate test where lines between hunter and hunted dissolve in the cold embrace. Did you know that in Imperial China, the ultimate test for a torturer like you often came not from a stranger's defiance, but from facing a kin or childhood friend in the chains? A custom rooted in the belief that personal bonds forged the strongest loyalty to the throne. Yet historians still argue if it hardened souls or shattered them beyond repair. The cold stone walls press against your back as you stagger into the interrogation chamber, the damp chill now mutating into a suffocating frost that claws at your lungs with each laboured breath, turning the air into a crystalline vice that squeezes your chest. A sensory struggle where the moisture on the walls beads like sweat on a fevered brow, dripping in slow, accusing plops that echo like distant heartbeats, forcing you to confront the familiar soul chained before you, your cousin, the one who shared boyhood secrets under village willows, now accused of harbouring rebel pamphlets, his eyes widening in recognition that blurs the lines between duty and despair, making your hands tremble as you approach, the metallic tang on your tongue sharpening into a razor-edge bite that grates like swallowing shards of betrayal. The physical event unfolds as you secure the chains around his wrists, the iron links clinking with a familiarity that stabs deeper than any tool, his skin warm and alive under your touch, a shocking element lightly dramatized in how he whispers your name not in anger but in pleading disbelief, stirring a sad flood of memories from carefree days stealing fruit from orchards, now tainted by the Empire's unyielding grip, empathy surging like a forbidden tide that threatens to drown your resolve, with light sarcasm curling in your mind like smoke from a dying ember. You think how this beats modern family reunions gone wrong over politics at Thanksgiving, where words wound but don't draw blood. But here, the reunion could end with you wielding the blade that severs blood ties forever. No awkward apologies or blocked numbers to mend the rift. The torchlight mutates into a harsh, unwavering glare from the sconce above, casting stark shadows that elongate your cousin's features into a grotesque parody of the boy you knew, illuminating the metallic tang's evolution into a bitter, ashy residue from the chamber's perpetual smoke, grating on your senses as you begin the questioning. Words, mechanical, but laced with unspoken sorrow. You revisit the bamboo grove with a surprising twist, your cousin confessing under duress that he witnessed your mercy there from afar, using it as leverage in his rebel contacts to paint you as a potential ally, turning that moment of hesitation into a noose that now tightens around both your necks. His revelation eroding the last vestiges of family bond into a web of mutual peril. Historians debate if such familial tests were deliberate Imperial tactics to weed out weak links or tragic coincidences amplified by the vast web of informants. But as he begs for release citing shared ancestors, you feel the uncertainty like frostbite numbing your core, duty clashing with despair in a storm that blurs right from ruin. The absurd historical tidbit whispers in your thoughts. Torturers facing kin sometimes used ghost veils, thin silk cloths soaked in herbal essences to obscure faces during sessions, believing it shielded the soul from familial curses, a fragrant barrier that masked identity but couldn't hide the heartache. Zooming out for a poetic moment, the chamber dissolves into a frozen cavern of the Empire's heart, where bloodlines freeze and fracture under the weight of loyalty's ice, each crack an echo of dynasties built on broken bonds, connecting your personal despair to the cold vastness of history's unforgiving ledger. But you press on, applying pressure to his fingers with a wooden vice, the creak of wood against bone amplifying the sensory struggle, the frost in the air biting at exposed skin while sweat forms despite the cold, a paradoxical torment that mirrors the blurring lines between tormentor and tormented. Your cousin's gasps humanizing the abstract accusations into a visceral plea that chips at your armor. In a clever commentary, you muse that it's ironic how the throne demands you break others to prove unbreakable, like a chef tasting his own poison to confirm its potency. The despair blurring duty into self-destruction with every turn of the screw. The metallic tang intensifies, now mingled with the herbal scent from a nearby censer meant to ward off evil, grating in a conflicting bouquet that nauseates as much as it numbs. Sanity teetering on the edge of collapse under the weight of this ultimate test. Modern comparison freezes in your mind worse than confronting a sibling in a courtroom drama, where evidence damns them. At least their justice pretends to be blind. But here, it's wide-eyed and personal. No jury to share the burden, just you and the familiar soul whose despair reflects your own hidden fractures. The torchlight holds steady, shadows frozen in place like petrified witnesses, the cold stone walls seeming to lean in closer, absorbing the whispers of his confessions that spill forth not from pain but from shared history. A psychological chill settling as you realize this test isn't just about his guilt, but your capacity to sever the last thread of humanity, tying you to a life before the blade. Sarcasm surfaces faintly splendid, the Empire's way of family therapy, where reconciliation comes via confessional corpse, far superior to group hugs or counseling sessions that don't end in blood. Your cousin slumps, names tumbling out like fallen leaves in autumn wind, but his eyes hold a spark of forgiveness that blurs the lines further, despair deepening into a chasm where duty feels like drowning in ice water. The sensory struggle peaks as the frost numbs your fingers, making the vice slip slightly, a momentary lapse that draws a gasp from him, shocking in its reminder that pain is mutual in this blurred dance. Zooming out again, the palace looms as a monolithic iceberg adrift in time's ocean, its hidden chambers cracking under pressures unseen, where familiar souls collide like drifting flows, shattering illusions of control in the Empire's frozen expanse. But the session drags, accusations flying back as he questions your choices, eroding sanity with echoes of childhood laughter now twisted into pleas, the metallic tang grating eternally like a dirge for lost innocence. The absurd veil idea mocks you, imagining its silk over your face, hiding tears that well unbidden, historians debating if such customs preserved or destroyed the torturer's spirit in the face of kin. Compared to DNA test revealing family secrets today, it's brutal. No ancestry apt to buffer the blow, just raw confrontation in cold confines. The cold intensifies, walls exhaling frosty breaths that mist the air, sensory motif a glacial shroud wrapping your form, blurring vision as despair takes hold, your cousin quiets, the test's ultimate weight pressing down, lines between duty and despair dissolving like ice in spring thaw, mood shifting toward the widening cracks in your armored shell. The torchlight dims to a ghostly flicker, shadows merging into a tapestry of silent figures on the stone, a strange visual of etched souls watching from the walls. As the echoes of accusations fade into the quiet recesses of your weary mind, you find yourself drifting through the dimly lit corridors of the palace one last time, the flickering torchlight softening to a gentle glow that dances lazily on the stone walls, casting long, languid shadows that stretch and yawn like old friends settling into slumber. The damp chill easing into a soothing coolness that wraps around you like a forgotten blanket, no longer biting but caressing your skin with the tenderness of a distant memory. Your footsteps slow, each one a soft pad against the worn floor, the metallic tang on your tongue dissolving into a faint, almost nostalgic whisper of iron, mutating now into the subtle taste of rain-washed earth after a storm as the sensory motifs that once tormented the cold, the blood, the cries begin to unravel, thread by thread, into wisps that float away on an unseen breeze. You pause in an empty hall where silent chairs stand like sentinel ghosts, their wooden frames creaking faintly as if exhaling the day's burdens, and the air grows still, your breathing deepening into rhythmic sighs that blend with the gentle hum of wind through cracked windows, carrying away the weight of Emperor's whims and betrayal's bites, the Empire's vast machine humming to a distant lullaby in the night. Lessons etched in pain linger softly, reminding you that even in the heart of cruelty, humanity flickers like embers in ash, urging a quiet reflection on how fragile the line between breaker and broken truly is. The ghosts retreating not in anger but in peaceful release, their forms dissolving into the fading light, the halls empty further, chairs unoccupied, torches dimming to mere sparks that wink out one by one, leaving you enveloped in a serene darkness where doubts and dreads melt away like morning mist under a rising sun. The world outside the palace stirring with new dawn's promise, your soul, scarred yet enduring, finding solace in the quiet fade of history's harsh grip. And as the last shadow slips away, you realize, in a whisper soft as silk on stone, that survival's true victory lies in the gentle art of letting go,